Alright, here we are back again with another Strange and Dark Cases compilation. You know how it works by this point. This is where I take a bunch of crimes that aren't really long enough to be their own video, but are definitely worth talking about and combine them all into one big video. So let's get started. Right now, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Hygiene. This is because lately I've been trying to find someone who can get all of my data off of these big marketing databases that I've never consented to being on. It's very hard to find a solid, definitive list of all of these companies that take your data and spread them all over the internet. Not only that, there have been numerous data breaches from different platforms over the years that have only been leaking out data and gradually adding to the problem. Requesting to be removed off of all of these could take you years to do manually. That's where Hygiene comes in. You can just make an account on Hygiene and they will send a data protection law compliance request to all of these different companies and demand that they remove all of your data from these different companies' databases. The US in particular has a big data privacy problem, that being those people search sites. These websites create detailed personal profiles of you and publish them online for anyone to see. This can expose you and your loved ones to anything from scams to identity theft to even online harassment and stalking. Just try Googling yourself. Give it your full name, city, and state. You'll be surprised at how many sites publicly share your private information, but Hygiene's custom removals can put a stop to that. Just point them to wherever your data is being exposed and their privacy experts will handle the rest. Hygiene's easy. Just make an account, give them the right to work on your behalf, and let them get to work. Take back your personal data with Hygiene. Just use code DIRETRIP at the description below and get 60% off of an annual plan. And now, back to the content. Alright, here we have child stabber released from prison, arrested again in a few days. It seems that these days there's no shortage of these crimes where a criminal is released far before they should be, only to go out and get arrested again pretty much right after. This is a case that shows that people are getting pretty tired of it. Ronald Xantis is a man with a horrific criminal history. In 2015, he drove from Indianapolis and stopped at a different city while on his way to Florida. He found the home of a family that he had no connection with at all whatsoever and decided that he would break in. He had wanted to attack someone and he didn't care who. He broke into the home of the Tipton family. The mother, Heather Tipton, said that he entered into the home through a door that was unlocked. Once Ronald made his way inside, he pulled out a butcher knife and began to assault the whole family. He attacked the family's young son, Logan, only 6 years old, stabbing him over and over again in the head in such a fury that he bent the blade of his knife. Logan screamed, caused his sister to run into the room. Ronald, seeing her, started stabbing her as well. The father joined in on the fight, as well as the other sister, both of them getting injured in the process as well. Ronald was arrested and eventually came to see a trial. There he went for the insanity defense. He said that he had seen a sign for a road called Gray Street, and that reminded him of the show Grey's Anatomy, which then in turn made him remember knives for surgery, as he put it. Already having the knife on his person, however, made this claim doubtful. Still, a few of his friends showed up to testify, saying that he had been acting weird in the days before going on his road trip. In the end, the judge went for it, and Ronald's insanity defense was a success. He was given a very light sentence despite the horrible crime, only 20 years, but being eligible for parole in 2019, only 4 years later. However, when basically everyone came to fight back against his release, the parole was pushed back to 2021, then another 2 years to 2023. Logan's dad, a man named Dean Tipton, swore revenge against Ronald during that time. He told the media, "I've had my talks with God because I'm not afraid to tell, and I've told the court if I ever cross paths with him, I will kill the man. I will kill him where he stands." The mother, Heather Tipton, felt differently. She was more fearful, given that during the attack, Ronald told one of the little girls, "I'm going to kill your entire family." Heather said that her family should be given some sort of protection. But more than that, she felt he shouldn't even get out at all. She said, "If you're a victim, and there's a violent criminal going to be released that's in connection to you, I think you should be offered some sort of security or protection, or at least a phone call. It just feels like a 6-year-old's life is worth more than 10 years in prison." While the family fought constantly to have his sentence extended, there wasn't really much they could do when his eventual release came around. Even though the parole board themselves unanimously wanted him to stay behind bars for as long as possible, the state of Kentucky felt differently. Kentucky law required the Department of Corrections to release Ronald on what they called a mandatory re-entry supervision. With that, Ronald Exantis, now 42, walked free from jail on October 1st, 2025. He only served about half of his sentence after getting some education and bonuses for good behavior. Ronald requested to be allowed to serve his supervision in Florida, and the state of Florida agreed to it. The outrage over his release quickly climbed all the way up to the top, with even the White House getting involved. The press secretary, Caroline Levitt, said that the White House was looking into this on social media, adding, "It's wholly unacceptable for a child killer to walk free after just several years in prison." The governor of Florida didn't want him there either, saying, "It's shocking he was let out of prison in Kentucky after serving a mere fraction of his sentence for murdering a 6-year-old kid." Now, living in Florida and looking at a complete, unsupervised release in June, Ronald should have done everything completely by the books. However, he didn't. First off, he picked a place to live that was right next to one elementary school and only a couple of blocks away from another one, of all things, despite his history of stabbing children. One of the only things that he was absolutely required to do was register as a convicted felon in the area very quickly, within 48 hours, and he simply decided not to do it for whatever reason. He ignored the single most important requirement he was given. Given how badly nobody wanted to see him released, the authorities were waiting for some chance for him to slip up, and there it was. With that, the police had ample reasoning to throw him back into prison where they wanted him to remain in the first place. They ended up arresting him right across the street from the elementary school near where he lived. The sheriff said, "I am proud of the quick response by my deputies and the interagency teamwork that helped locate and arrest this disgusting individual." Ronald was taken off to the Marion County Jail to be held without bond. It was proven that he was indeed supplied with a letter from the Department of Corrections, telling him that he was required to register as a felon in the area. While failing to do so was only a misdemeanor, it did violate his parole and gave them enough reason to extradite him back to Kentucky. Lieutenant Paul Bloom with the Marion County Sheriff's Office said, "It is of a national concern, and for us, our hope is maybe we shoulder just a little bit of that burden that the Tipton family shoulders every day in thinking of this. And I can't imagine the horror and the sadness that ripped through that family when they realized that this man was being released early." And next up we've got, streamer killed by obsessive viewer who donated $70,000. Yoon Jia, a streamer in South Korea, was a woman who had dreams of becoming an actress. It wasn't long into her career that she made quite a name for herself online, eventually getting over 300,000 followers on social media. Yoon Jia was approached by a fan of hers, a man who went by the name Black Cat on these streaming platforms. He was known to be a very big spender and mega simp when it came to the massive amount of money he would dump on female streamers. This man, only known by his surname Choi, came to spend over $70,000 on Yoon Jia's streams alone. When you factor in how many other women he watched too, you might expect him to be a multi-millionaire. That was not the case though. He was actually in an enormous amount of debt for these spending habits. His house was even seized and put up for auction due to his streamer addiction. When he approached Yoon Jia, he did so from the angle that he was the wealthy president of an IT company. He told her that he wanted to become her business partner, telling her that he saw her potential and could make her follower count skyrocket. However, Yoon Jia noticed that things weren't quite as they seemed pretty quickly. Once Yoon Jia started to see how demanding and controlling over her content he was, she backed out of this business plan and cut off contact with him. After this, Choi made his way out to see Yoon Jia in person. CCTV cameras caught him falling to his knees and begging to her from the ground in front of her. She didn't want to talk to him again regardless of his pleading, and that sent Choi over the edge. The next time the two were seen, it was around 3:30 p.m. That's when Choi was seen throwing her into his car. His hand could be seen from inside the car, pulling her back inside and slamming the door before driving away. Choi took Yoon Jia back to his home and strangled her with his bare hands. He then put her body into a large suitcase and took her out to his car. Throwing the suitcase into the back of his car, he set off on a journey. Throughout the next several hours, he stopped at 8 different places for unknown reasons, although it's believed that it was done so in order to make the investigation more difficult. His final stop was in the Muju Mountains, where he finally dumped her body. Then, eventually, her body was found on September 11th. The police found that she had been killed only 30 minutes after her final live stream had ended. The news of what had happened quickly sent the country of South Korea, and the wider world of streaming in general, into mourning. It was an example of what putting yourself in front of an audience and letting them hand you money can result in. Choi was arrested 12 hours after the body was found. At first, he denied that he had anything at all to do with the whole thing. However, once the police told him that they had the body, he confessed to everything. It was speculated that Choi had snapped after losing his home and hoped that working with Yoon Jia would help him financially recover. When she cut him off due to his endless demands, he tried to make one last effort to get her to work with him so he could profit off of her. When that didn't work, he simply became lost in his rage. Yoon Ji-a's murder has caused a lot of people online to call for more regulation and safety when it comes to online personalities, saying that this could easily happen to others as well. And this one is, woman uses Roblox to convince a child to murder. Roblox has been in the news a lot lately, and for good reason. It is one of the platforms that adults use the most to target children. Even a good number of young killers that we've covered on this channel have been influenced, at least in part, by people they met on Roblox. This story definitely doesn't really help with the game's reputation. This is the story of a woman named Tara Alexis Sykes, a 36-year-old mom who had already been arrested once in 2025. That case was particularly heinous as well. She and her husband had been letting a 20-year-old friend of theirs live at their home, knowing very well that he was lusting after their 14-year-old daughter. Well, that guy ended up getting their daughter pregnant, and they knew about it. The daughter herself, who was 31 weeks pregnant and severely malnourished by the time she reached out to the police, told them that her parents did threaten to kill the 20-year-old, if he didn't get his grandma to pay them $10,000 to keep quiet, that is. This grandma did just that, so they let it slide, just as they said they would. Given that Tara and her husband had knowingly allowed all of this to occur, covered it up, and never reported it, they were charged. On May 28th, Tara was hit with one count of neglecting a child without causing great bodily harm, meaning that her husband was likely hit with something very similar. Tara was back out and living at home again shortly after. The 36-year-old criminal mom decided to pick up Roblox to talk with some other children. She came to talk with a 10-year-old very regularly. That boy appears to have been living in some sort of foster home or care facility. She told the boy that he should kill one of the 2-year-olds at that facility, giving him clear instructions on how to do so. She told him to throw the infant into a bathtub of scalding water and then drop the child on the floor until they no longer showed any signs of life, which he did. She continued, telling him how he could kill the adults at the home as well. She told him to cut their throats as they slept, douse their beds with aerosol spray, and light them on fire. The boy did spray the beds with aerosol spray in this case, but he didn't carry out the rest. It isn't clear if this was because he was stopped or because he gave up voluntarily. It goes without saying that the police investigated and talked with the boy. He admitted that someone on Roblox had told him to do it all and provided him with instructions. Tara was soon caught by the police and arrested on one count of attempted murder while engaged in aggravated child abuse. She was thrown into the Escambia County Jail and held without bond. The police made it clear that they were looking for a way to hit her with even more charges. The sheriff said, "I have been in law enforcement for over 40 years and have never seen anything quite like this. I am truly disturbed by the circumstances and the thought that anyone could think like this, let alone instruct these acts to be carried out. There is something really wrong with her." Now, Tara has 2 very different cases of child abuse pending against her. Let's hope she gets the maximum sentence possible. And this one is a wild ride. Girl dies getting breast implants from mom's boyfriend. Alright, here is a truly bizarre case that is really honestly beyond words. We've had some violent acts against children in this video already, and this one is similar but very different. A 14-year-old girl in Mexico, Paloma Nicole Arellano Escobedo, was living between her 2 parents, sometimes at her father's house and sometimes at her mother's. At this mother's home was a stepfather/live-in boyfriend named Victor Manuel, a plastic surgeon. As the story goes, the 45-year-old pervert stepdad, Victor, had convinced the 14-year-old girl, who hadn't even fully developed, that she could use some breast implants and a butt lift. He agreed to provide them to her free of charge. Eventually, she agreed to the whole thing and went under the knife. Victor then performed the surgeries on her. However, when she came home, she was in a dire situation. As a result of the surgery, she was having heart problems and was later found to have had swelling in the brain. She was taken to a hospital in Durango, Mexico about a week after the secret surgery, no longer even functioning. She had completely fallen into a coma. She came to pass away, and her father was told by the mom and stepdad that she had died from complications related to COVID. The father, having no reason to think it was a lie, believed them. However, he found his reason to doubt them at the funeral of all places. While saying his goodbyes, he noticed that his young daughter suddenly had very large breasts. When he asked the mom why this was, she denied everything. At first, she said she had no idea why that was the case, but then she denied that they had actually grown at all. But other family members came to mention it too. To anyone else, it was plainly obvious, making her look suspicious right off the bat. The dad got the mom and the other kids to leave the room so he could take a look. Sure enough, she had had surgery. The scars were clear as day, and the job wasn't even done well at all. It was found that the mom had fully agreed to the surgery and supported it. They were accused of participating in a cover-up, knowing that they were definitely at fault for her death. In Mexico, there aren't any age requirements for plastic surgery. Still, if you're a minor, you're only supposed to be able to get them with both parents' permission. The Attorney General announced that he would begin investigating the mom and stepfather, at first for putting her in risky situations and neglecting to care for her. The case was so outlandish that the President of Mexico herself even got involved. It was announced the Interior Ministry would be following up on the case themselves. The President said, "Send us the case and we will gladly reach out to the family and see how we can help." On September 28, 2025, a judge came to charge the mom, Paola Jasmine, and Victor Manuel in connection with her death. They were hit with charges of omission of care, falsification of documents, usurpation of profession, and negligence in the exercise of medicine. They are now both being held in jail as the investigation unfolds. Victor also had his license suspended and now faces charges of malpractice. Once the final autopsy is performed, it's very possible that he could be hit with even more severe charges, and it seems that that will likely be the case. And, wow, here we have, woman breaks into boyfriend's house to slice open his ball bag. Now here's a story that's going to give some good old phantom pains to all the men out there. And I guess women too, if you don't really like the idea of a knife going straight towards your genitals. A 45-year-old woman named Janita Hoppins had been dating a man who has gone unnamed. At some point she got dumped, and she didn't take this very well at all. One night, she decided to get her revenge by breaking into her ex-boyfriend's house with the most nefarious of intentions. Carrying what has only been called an unknown instrument in the news, she kicked open the door and made her way into the house. Her ex-boyfriend heard the commotion and ran downstairs to see what was going on, actually completely naked at the time, for whatever reason. That's when Janita took this sharp object that she was holding and sliced the man across his nut bucket. The police were pretty immediately called as Janita fled the scene. When they came out, they saw that the man's junk was in such bad shape that one of his orbs was, quote, clearly exposed as a result of the laceration. In other words, it was hanging out. He was rushed to the hospital to get some treatment as quickly as possible. By seeing Janita's mugshot, you might have assumed that she was caught. Sadly, that's not the case. It's an older mugshot that's been making its rounds across the internet. While she hadn't really done anything on this scale before, she had been arrested several times for driving-related misdemeanors. The police actually haven't caught up with her as of the writing of this video. Still, they have gone ahead and charged her with aggravated burglary and felonious assault where the victim was seriously harmed. Whenever she does get caught, she's in for some big trouble. And here we've got, Florida man attacks his mom with sausages. Now, here's a case that's a bit old, but it's recently started making rounds on the internet due to becoming a meme. At first, I thought it was one of those fake, over-the-top crimes that gets passed around in meme format, but it turns out it's real. The criminal we've got here is a man named Hermes Callejas Gasparin. He had been arrested previously after his stepfather caught him smoking weed on the front porch. The police weren't actually called because of the weed, but because he had lashed out and attacked his stepfather for criticizing him. Then, when the police came out, he tried to flee. Ultimately, he was charged with misdemeanor marijuana possession and resisting police at the time, to which he pled no contest. It wasn't long before he was out and living with his mom once again. At around 8 p.m. one Monday night, he asked his 41-year-old mother to make some food for him. She agreed to do it, but asked him to give her a few minutes as she was busy. Hermes did not like that response. Hermes got more and more angry as the seconds without food passed. He took the sausages that he wanted to eat and started throwing them at her. One of them hit her right in the eyeball. He then pushed her backward before putting his hands around her neck in a rage. The police were called during the scuffle, and Hermes was once again taken down to the police station. While there, he said that he wasn't angry because his mom didn't cook for him immediately when asked. He said that he was mad because she aggressively bumped into him while she was doing the cooking. At that point, he admitted that he did throw the sausages. However, he said that he wouldn't have done it if she would have simply apologized to him, so it was her fault. Hermes was charged with misdemeanor domestic battery at the time and booked into jail. He was given a $750 bond, which it seemed that he had some trouble paying. When he finally was released, he was ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from his mom at all times. It's unclear what came of him after that. And this one is, man arrested 70 times targets targets. From February of 2024 to September of 2025, trouble was brewing all across a few states. A series of thefts were taking place, and the ringleader of these thefts was a man named Bernard Lane. Over the years, Bernard has been charged for all sorts of different crimes: assaults, DUIs, evading arrest, you name it. Throughout 2024 alone, he had been arrested and convicted a whole 36 times. In total, he has been arrested over 70 times. In one of the cases, he choked out and threatened to kill his ex-girlfriend. The judge allowed him to bond out of jail for $1. The ex-girlfriend that he choked was a woman named Shalandra Gilbert, and it doesn't seem that the violence deterred her too much. While she didn't get back together with him, she decided to be his accomplice in this chain of robberies. Another accomplice was a woman named Alicia Morris, who is probably Brandon's new girlfriend as they share the same address. While this crime spree started out in Houston, they soon expanded their horizons. They moved the operation up to Overland Park, Kansas. There, Brandon got arrested in July of 2025 for stealing from a single Target store. Again, he was allowed to bond out nearly for free. After that, nothing changed. They simply continued their crime spree together. They went out to Georgia and Alabama soon after, hitting up even more Target stores. At these two stores alone, they stole about $2,000 worth of merchandise. It isn't known why they had such a grudge against Target in particular. By September, they had made their way back out to Texas. There they stole from 4 more Targets in Harris County alone. This was where all 3 of them would finally be caught. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, over only a few months, the 3 of them had stolen over $300,000 worth of merchandise in total that they knew of. They're still working to find out how far the scope of the crime spree actually went. All 3 of the suspects are now being held in Harris County Jail. And hey, now we have Florida man eats peacocks as revenge. We have seen a lot of revenge tales over the years, some of them justified and some of them not. Some of them, like this one, don't really even seem to make any logical sense as a form of revenge except to the man himself. Oh, and it is a Florida man. Craig Vogt, a 61-year-old man in Hudson, Florida, was pretty unreasonably angry about one thing: his neighbor feeding his pet peacocks. He demanded that she stop giving them any food. However, it seems that she didn't stop and continued to feed them. Even though Craig's concern seemed to be that overfeeding them was bad, therefore meaning he was concerned for the birds, his idea of revenge against this neighbor went against all of that. He decided to butcher 2 of the peacocks, cook them up in a frying pan, and devour them. He then stuck a note in his neighbor's mailbox, saying that he had eaten the birds and it was all her fault because she wouldn't stop feeding them. He said that he would continue to eat more of the birds just to prove a point if she didn't stop her incessant feeding. This neighbor called the police on Craig, given that he was threatening to kill even more of the pets, and he was arrested. While he was being thrown into the cruiser, he told the deputies that he would kill and eat all of the rest of the birds as soon as he got out, just so that nobody else could have them. He was thrown into jail, charged with a felony count of 3rd-degree aggravated animal cruelty. He has no attorney. The police refused to comment on what happened to the rest of the peacocks. Here is a doozy. Woman dumps avalanche of tampons on ex-boyfriend's lawn. Alright, here we actually have a Florida woman case, and it's recently been making the rounds on social media for really good reason. It is definitely probably one of the weirdest ones I've ever heard of. In DeLand, Florida, a female firefighter was having some issues behind the scenes. Her ex-boyfriend, who had dumped her, had started dating a new woman. She couldn't really handle it. So, like many of these people tend to do, she showed exactly why she was probably dumped. At around 10 p.m. on September 29th, 2025, Gabrielle Franz pulled up in front of this ex-boyfriend's house in her pickup truck. She parked outside and waited for the traffic to clear. Once it did, she jumped out and began throwing objects all over the yard. These were tampons, at least 75 of them in fact. It was later said that they were, quote, stained red as if they were used. Well, the new girlfriend woke up and found the blood sponges all over the front yard the next morning. She ended up calling the police. Little did Gabrielle know, she had been caught on camera the whole time. The police were able to find her license plate number pretty easily, which led them out to her home. Originally, she said that she didn't even know where her ex-boyfriend lived. Once she was shown the photos of her truck, she changed her story. She said that, okay, yes, she was at the house, but none of it was her idea. She said that the idea for the crime actually came from her mother and aunt. She said that the three of them had bought a bunch of the crotch corks and painted them red only to appear as if they had been used. Then all of them drove out and chucked them all over the lawn. When her ex-boyfriend and the new girlfriend were asked who they thought might have done this, they both immediately assumed it was Gabrielle. As it turned out, she had been ranting online and to friends quite a bit about how angry she was that her ex-boyfriend was dating someone new. They were able to provide social media posts showing so. In the end, the police arrested Gabrielle on 2 charges of misdemeanor stalking. They said that the incident was done solely to harass the couple, comically adding that the dumping of the tampons, quote, serves no legitimate purpose. Gabrielle quickly posted bond after a court appearance, saying that her lawyer was trying to get the case thrown out. She claims that there wasn't enough evidence tying her to the crime. The new girlfriend took to Facebook to blast Gabrielle, claiming that it was worse than originally reported, with it actually having been over 100 tampons. She said, "Firefighters are supposed to stand for honor and integrity, yet she chose to do something like this and was arrested for stalking. That's how you ruin a badge and a reputation." And now, man bitten on the junk by toilet snake. Here we have yet another case that's going to give you some ball pain, and it's one of those that really legitimizes the fears that people have about little critters coming up through the toilet and biting your junk. A man in Thailand, Thanat Thongtawanan, sat down on the toilet in a public bathroom. When he did, he was surprised to feel an acute, sharp pain radiate throughout his nether nuggets. In his own words, he said, "I felt something biting my balls. It was very painful, so I put my hands in the toilet to see what was wrong. I was shocked that I grabbed a snake." So he grabbed it by the neck and decided to give it a squeeze, hoping that that would work. Still nothing. He jumped up from the toilet and looked for whatever weapon he could find. Toilet brush. Good enough. As the blood sprayed all over the bathroom floor, he beat the snake to death with the brush. This caused the snake to finally release its bite. He said, "I quickly stood up and plucked it out. I felt pain, really bad pain, and there was blood everywhere, but I was more shocked to have found a python in the toilet." Amazed, he decided to take a bunch of pictures for his social media. Then he went off to the hospital to get checked out. Luckily, he didn't need any stitches, but he did get a tetanus shot. He was proud to say, "My testicles are safe now. I'm lucky it wasn't a venomous snake. A cobra would have killed me, but I haven't used that toilet again since." This wasn't even the only time that people in Thailand have gotten their undersides bitten by snakes over the past decade. In 2016, one man had the same thing happen with a python that had been hiding in his plumbing. He had things a lot worse, undergoing a hospital stay afterward. In 2020, another woman faced a similar treatment as soon as she sat down on the toilet. She got so angry that she beat the snake into mush with a hammer. Also in 2020, another woman got her butt munched by a 7-foot python in a similar situation. Then in 2023, another woman actually lucked out. She was about to face the same fate before she noticed the snake already peeking out from deep inside the toilet. That one was a 12-foot python, and it took a crew smashing out the pipes to even get the snake out of her plumbing. If you think you're safe in other countries, you are not. In 2024, residents across Arizona and Louisiana also found snakes inside their toilets on many different occasions. I'll leave you with that little bit of food for thought. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. These days I have a merch store open. There you can buy yourself clothing and shirts. If you want, go ahead and follow me on social media. If the channel ever got nuked, or if you just need to get a hold of me for some reason, that's the easiest way to do it. I also really appreciate when people subscribe to my Patreon. There you can get videos early, ad-free, and uncensored. Channel memberships are up too, and you can get most of the same benefits there as well. Once again, this has been your host Kyle. Thank you, and good night.